And welcome to the Rouse Center for the Arts RaueCast, where we talk about all things Rouse Center and RCSA. I'm your host today, Rob Scharlow, the director of Rouse Center School for the Arts, as well as the upcoming RCSA production of Static, Noise of a New Musical. And today we have got a special treat for you as we dive into the world of Static, which is an original Morse code musical about a teen searching for her dad lost in the woods on the Appalachian Trail. It's such a unique show, which it also gives our audience a chance to be part of the show and participate in it by decoding clues to the mystery of the show. Our audience is actually going to have that information in their program, and they get to track it as the show goes. But don't worry, you don't need to know how to read Morse code when you see the show, because we are going to teach you right before the show starts. We've had the fortunate privilege of working in collaboration with the 415 Amateur Radio Club of McHenry County, and they are going to be coming in to actually talk to our audience about that prior to the show starting and give you a little quick rundown on how to decode Morse code. So yeah, Static. It's a show which blends an acoustic campfire sing-along with this intrigue of true crime podcast, and it's already made waves by winning Best Musical and Best Ensemble at the 2022 Capitol Fringe Festival. And I'm so excited because joining us today are the incredibly talented minds behind Static, the writer and composer, Tess Rowan, who is also appearing in the show as Maine McAfee. We've also got some of our other amazing cast members and production crew. We have got Connor Daly, who plays Charlie Oscar. Go ahead and give a wave there, Connor. And we've got Larissa Beckman playing our radio host. And Nora Hubert, who plays Georgia McAfee. And our incredible and talented stage manager who keeps me on track all the time, Miss Jessie Higgins. And of course, Tess Rowan herself. So everybody stay tuned as we kind of explore this creative process and the characters and what you can expect from this exciting new musical, premiering on the Rouse Center stage from July 12th through the 21st. Don't worry, we're going to repeat all this at the end. But also on July 19th, we have got a special performance where afterwards we're going to be hosting a talkback with our cast and creative team. So our audience can stick around, get some more further insight on the show. And then we'll be also offering a VIP meet and greet for our Row Now family members. So definitely check that out. Get your tickets at rowcenter.org. And with that, we're going to dive right into this. Tessa, I want to start with you, and I would love for you to tell our listeners and our audience a little bit more about Static. What's it about? You know, where are we going with this show as we jump into this RaueCast?
Yeah, so like you said, Static is a folk rock and Morse code musical. It's the first musical to use Morse code as a method of dramatic storytelling. And in Static, we follow this mystery adventure story following two teens, Maine and Charlie, trying to find Maine's dad who's lost in the woods. We also meet the McAfee family, who have been living in the woods for 5 years. And the show is set in the town of Duncannon, Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of real life elements of the Appalachian Trail and ham radio within the show as well.
And what sort of inspired you to create a musical centered around Morse code and the Appalachian Trail? Because obviously, probably many of our listeners, Morse code is probably very new to them. So can you kind of give us a little bit of background of that inspiration and why Morse code?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really inspired to create sort of a mystery and adventure storyline for writing a new musical. And I grew up in the DC area, about 30 minutes from the Appalachian Trail. So, this idea of the Appalachian Trail and hiking and spending time outdoors was like a very big part of the area where I grew up. So, there were a lot of those elements that I decided to continue researching and discovering when writing Static. But I think the biggest research of the show has been Morse code. When I began writing the original score for Static, I was so into the idea of having characters communicating through ham radio. And from there, I realized that Morse code could be used in a musical context. And that just really inspired me to bring a decodable language into a theater space.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's, as being the director of the show, that's one of the things that intrigued me the most about the story overall was just those elements of Morse code built into not only the music, but allowing our audience that's going to see the show to actually participate and decode the clues. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it's such a very cool thing. I kind of want to dive in right away talking to some of our actors that are here. I would like to start. Let's go over to Connor. And Connor, why don't you share a little bit about what the character, not what, but who the character is that you're playing in the show?
Yeah, hi. I'm Connor. I play Charlie Oscar, and he's a very unique kid. I think he has a very big drive to want to make a difference in the world in the form of being a detective. And I think from a small town, he can be kind of like pushed aside. Not very many people know about Duncannon. Um, and I say that he's a he's a very unique person. It's very cool that Charlie and Maine cross paths in the show, and they use their differences to connect.
So, with a role like Charlie, how do you, as an actor and as Connor, um, being an actor, how do you kind of prepare for that role? And, what sort of challenges are you faced with preparing for it?
I would say that for me, this is definitely the most musical numbers that I've had in a show, and I would say that preserving my voice and being able to um, I kind of like to try to change my voice a little bit to give a little bit more life to the character. I feel like Charlie is a very soft and almost shy character, but he has a little bit of outbursts. He kind of like acts out a little bit in certain points in the show. So yeah, finding that balance has
Mm-hmm.
been a good journey.
That's great. Thank you. Let me jump over to Larissa, especially because something I want to point out, and obviously our audience, this is a new show that nobody is going to know until they come and see it. But your character in the show as the radio host plays a very
Mm-hmm.
significant role in the narrative of the piece. So, how do you approach a character that serves kind of as a narrator and also moves the plot forward in the show?
That's a great question. I think for me, my biggest thing that I've sort of taken as I, practice and, rehearse on my own is like number one, knowing kind of exactly what information I'm saying is more crucial to the plot, especially in bits near the end of the story and leading into the end of the show. I'm trying to kind of piece out what parts are really important that I get across. I mean, everything I'm saying, I always think this when I'm in a performing or rehearsing anything, everything that I'm saying is important to some extent. But I like picking out those specific parts and understanding that maybe me as a character, I don't fully understand the context and how this applies to sort of the family because I'm a bit separated from that when I'm in the show
Mm-hmm.
itself. But I like being able to sort of know what moments and what words I'm saying are like the really significant words and things I'm trying to get across to the audience. So that's sort of what I've been taking in with it as well. And also just recognizing that my character is completely separate from this sort of family dynamic that is within the play itself and sort of just knowing the difference between those two things, but also respecting the importance of like what I am saying and how I am driving the plot as my character.
That's actually a really good point that you bring up, and that was something I was going to ask. Is because the radio hosts
Mm-hmm.
themselves is not part of the family dynamic in this show, and I'm going to have Tess talk a
Right.
little bit about that family dynamic. But it really is true that this radio host does drive certain plot points. I mean, would you not agree that
Mm-hmm.
even though it is not part of the family dynamic, that it actually still is in a way?
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely agree with it because like even this is something I was just thinking about actually yesterday was just the radio itself and sort of the radio host and getting the morning news is so important to the family and is like an everyday sort of thing that Maine does as a character. So even if my own like personal character as the radio host is separate from that family, it also still plays a really important role into how the family works and how they operate. So I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I just really like sort of how even though my character is separate from that dynamic, I'm still influencing it in a lot of ways, and I think it's just a really cool thing within the script itself.
Yes, definitely, definitely. All right, I have to move over to you, Nora. It just makes me giggle. The character makes me giggle. I really love what Tess has done with the character. So I'm actually going to just let you talk about your character, who she is, and yeah, share a little bit about it, because it's, like I said, it makes me giggle when I think of that character in rehearsal and what her little secret. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what to say exactly without
without
like
giving it away.
spoiling any surprises. Um, Georgia McAfee is the second youngest McAfee. Um, there, what I really like to focus on with her is, as we were discussing, the family dynamic and the unique situation that the family is in, and how that affects someone who's a little bit younger than the other siblings. And she definitely started living in this unique situation at a younger age than her two older siblings. And how being at that younger, more vulnerable age influences someone who's not as bold as Maine is.
So, as the aspects of her story, her particular story, are pretty compelling. How do you approach that?
Um, I like to start by understanding where we can be at a similar understanding, like the points where I connect to her as a character, and then using that to approach the things that I don't understand. Like, I'm not an outdoor person. I would never live in the woods.
I don't know why. Why
And
not? So,
yeah, but just to understand how she is dealing with this unique situation.
no, that makes total sense. And again, I don't know why you wouldn't want to live in a forest for 5 years. I mean, that's just me. I'm just saying. But and speaking of living in a forest, now that's a segue right there, folks. Tess, let's jump to you, because you're kind of playing multiple duties here. Not only have you written a musical, you wrote the book, you wrote the score, which our resident music director James Mablin is helping you actually finalize a piano conductor score. But on top of that, you're in the show as well. So you want to share with our listeners and our audience your character? Tell a little bit about Maine.
Yeah, so in the show, I'm playing the role of Maine McAfee. She's the youngest daughter of the McAfee family, and the McAfees as a whole are a family who hiked the Appalachian Trail together 5 years ago. And then at one point, one night in Duncannon, Pennsylvania, the father was lost in the woods, and the family's been camping out ever since. So it's a process kind of getting into that mindset of a 15-year-old who's just out there with her family. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to produce Static 3 summers in a row. And this will be my third summer playing Maine McAfee while also writing and developing the show.
Yes, that is. You've had opportunity to do this before. You get to do it again. So, and obviously this time we are fully realizing it. And for our audience that doesn't understand what we mean by fully realized, is this time we are using the full Rouse stage. We are going to have a set, and we've got full costumes and everything else. So we're very excited to have you here, Tess, as well, doing this. I kind of want to jump over to the technical side of things with Jesse Higgins, our stage manager there. I have had the opportunity to work with you, Jesse, for many years now. You're back with us after Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Tell our listeners a little bit, what is the difference with doing a new musical / workshop where it's in development, as opposed to doing a show like Diary? What do you take away from this, or what can you share about this that that you think our audience would like to know?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of differences with a show like Diary or any show that's been fully produced and licensed and has gone through all these steps that Static is currently working through. You have kind of all the material right there for you, and you can you have a script and a score, and unless there's a specific reason for your specific production that adjustments need to be made, that's the material that you've got, and that's what you go with. With a show like Static, a show that's still very much in development, Tess came in with a show written and music written, but she goes home every night and she makes changes based on things that we did in rehearsal. She hears things in rehearsal and goes, I don't really like the way that line is playing. I'm going to change it a little bit. And so you're constantly getting updates and improvements to the show. So you've got to keep track of that and make sure that everybody on the team is informed of those changes so that you're all on the same page. And it's always really interesting to me. I've done a couple uh like new works in the past, and it's always really interesting to me to watch that development process happen and see how the show changes from what you have the first day in the rehearsal studio to what you end up putting on stage for audiences.
Do you think that this becomes more stressful doing a workshop like this? Do you find it more stressful doing a show like this as opposed to a big musical that's already structured, or do you actually find it very educational because it does keep changing?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say it's more stressful. I think it's a different kind of stressful.
Yeah.
Um, I think obviously there is a certain amount of work that goes with distributing changes and keeping up with things, and there's not as much that you can rely on. Hold on to formulate my words. There's not as much to rely on. Like there's not necessarily as much details provided in the script as there is in like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So I think it's a different kind of stress in that way, trying to figure everything out. But I think no matter how you're involved in a workshop, I think there is so much learning opportunity and so
Mhm.
many things that you can take away from it, no matter what position you're you're playing.
100% agreed. I think that this is an educational experience for everybody involved in this. Um, actually want this is a question for all of you, kind of piggybacking off of what Jesse says. And Tess, same with you. Feel free to answer this, even though you wrote the script. But these are all new characters, and in a show like, let's say, I'm just using this as a terrible example, but something like Little Shop of Horrors. We as actors and performers have a very set idea of what the characters are, how they're played and stuff. So for all of you, what are your thoughts? I mean, trying to create characters that you know nothing about. Is that exciting? Is that a challenging to you? Is that challenging in any way? And what do you enjoy about it? And again, this is for all of you, so feel free to answer whatever order you like. Or not. Nobody has to.
I really liked it.
Did you just say you really like it?
Yeah, I love being able to create a character, and especially with Georgia, she's a 16-year-old girl, and I was a 16-year-old girl not terribly long ago. So it's nice to meet in that sense and be like, she's very similar to me in some senses. So in a lot of ways, I just put a lot of myself into the character. And for everything that we don't know, we get to ask Tess, which is fantastic because she knows everything. This is her world, and if we're not sure about something, we have the best source in the world to get the information.
That's a valid point. Larissa or Connor, what about you? I mean, what are your thoughts? Because again, you came into this not knowing anything about these characters, so you actually get to create them and let Tess see that. So, what are your thoughts?
I can go. I
Of
don't want
course,
to
yes.
cut you off, Connor, if you want to go.
No,
Um,
you're good.
I don't know, the radio host is very interesting to me. It's by far out of like anything I've done in theater before, it's been the most like in the best possible way, the most intriguing process I've been a part of. Because it's like my character is mostly done through my voice and is done through again the information that I'm delivering. So something I've been focusing a lot on like the tonality of my voice and I want every word to come out very clearly and enunciated, which I've had issues in the past before because I feel like I talk too fast. But even just as a character, I've really enjoyed the fact that I've been able to like ask for like advice and for inspiration on how to continue to develop it, and feel like I can do that freely. Um, because again, I've been in a part of processes where that's not the case. So it's been really, really cool to have the writer like in the room with us and for me to be able to like ask like, what direction do you want this character to go in? Like being able to ask those kinds of questions has been really, really helpful and in me trying to figure out like what is this character, like what would they sound like, what would they care about, like when they're wishing somebody a happy birthday, did they have that personal connection, things like that. So it's a lot of like really specific questions, but really I can think about it all day, so it's a really, really cool process.
What about you, Connor?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool opportunity to kind of like almost build a foundation for the character. We were given um, small character descriptions when we first got our parts, and one thing that I really clinged on to was Charlie tries to do the right thing, even if it's often wrong. And I think that's what really drives him throughout the show.
Tess, how about you? Because obviously, and this is something you and I talked about. You
Mm.
know, you have an idea of who Maine is. You've played Maine, and then you're coming in, and I may have a completely different interpretation of who Maine is as the director. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, of your developing that character as well.
Yeah, I've really most enjoyed in this process just getting to work with a totally new group of people in the room. I have so much fun just being on stage and singing with everybody. And I think like building up that family dynamic and kind of understanding each character in context of one another and within the world they live in has really informed how I play Maine. And I think as a writer, I'm very like tuned into how I can aid in the overall story. But it's interesting, kind of focusing in on one part that I'm performing in the show and just building up those relationships with the cast while I'm doing it. Yeah.
That's great. Especially because you're not from here, so these are all new performers to you. So that's great. No, Um, this is a question. We're going to kind of wrap it up. I know that we could talk about this for an hour, but I think I'm glad that we were at least able to kind of pick everybody's brains a little bit about characters, a little bit more about the show. But this is a question for all of you. Um, what so far has been your favorite moment? Whether it's a scene you've rehearsed or something you've seen or witnessed or been part of within the development process. We'll just kind of start at the top here. According to my screen layout, Nora, let's start with you. We'll just what for you is that?
Yeah, I mean, I've already kind of mentioned this, but I absolutely love getting to work with Tess, and like being able to see a show as it's sort of being developed. Tess is incredible, of course. We all keep talking about that, but it's really amazing to see how this process works and how she writes and develops the story.
We are going to give Tess a complex. I just want to point that out. Um, you know,
You're so
I'm I'm glad
sweet.
that you all enjoy working with Tess and not the actual director because that guy just has no clue what is happening. Um, Tess, how about you? And don't you dare,
Oh,
compliment yourself and be like, I love working with myself. So.
I First thing I thought of was our discussions on Morse code. Rob, we had a week before we started rehearsals where we just got to sit down and talk about the characters, and I think you're bringing in so many amazing ideas that I hadn't thought of about the show. So that's been kind of cool to implement. And then along with the Morse code thing, I loved day one of rehearsals, just geeking out with everyone about Morse code and singing Morse code in rehearsals on Wednesday night. So all the Morse code things.
So many Morse code things.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Connor, how about you? What has been either your favorite moment, whether it's a scene you've rehearsed or just a moment within the process?
I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of that. Working with Morse code has been like a really big eye opener for how you can communicate things on stage, and it is super cool that like the audience gets to play along a little bit. And I feel like this is one of those shows where you need to come see it more than once and really get to
Mhm.
really be able to feel what's going on in the story.
Larissa, how about you?
If I may, I have like two small
Of
things that
course.
have been my
Yes, go
favorite
ahead.
moments. My first one I wanted to talk about was actually like something that happened like directorially within the blocking. I wasn't in the scene at all. I was sitting on the side, but it was the whole family, and they were singing like a song to each other. And then there was like the one boy in the family. His name's Katana, and I think I said that correctly.
You
And
got it.
like
You got
it's
it.
just a beautiful moment. Yay! But there was this really specific moment that was given to Katana and the character within the blocking that I thought was just so cool. And Rob, you talked specifically about how you wanted to make this stage picture, and then when they ran the song, the picture was like there, and it was super cool. And I was like, this is such a cool moment. I'm so glad I get to be here for this. And then my other moment was actually a conversation. Again, I was just sitting, like, sort of watching everything happen, but it was a discussion about on both Charlie and Maine's character and like how they interact, how their relationship interacts with each other, and it was just super cool just to watch you guys like sort of talk about it, like, and just be like, this is how I think about it, and this is how I think about it. And again, both of those moments have been for me just like sitting and watching. And I think sometimes that is like the best opportunities you can get in theater is just watching other people work and seeing how they create things. So those have been my favorite moments.
Yay. And Jesse, how about you?
Um, I think I also kind of have two. I think just the team in general, obviously, Rob, you and James and I have done several shows together at this point, so it's always fun to be able to work with you guys, and the cast is so great, and I'm just having a really good time working with the team. But I also really love, like Nora spoke to, having Tess there because there was I think it was last week, Tess had made an edit and she had made a kind of significant addition to Georgia's character. And it just
Yes, we did.
completely came out of nowhere for me. And I remember looking at Tess and going, where did this idea come from? And just picking her brain and hearing about how she got this idea and how she incorporated it into the show was really fun.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks. This has been just an absolute blast talking to the cast. We could go on for hours about all this stuff, but thank you to our listeners and our audience for tuning into the Rouse Center for the Arts RaueCast. We hope you enjoyed this exclusive behind-the-scenes look at static noise of a new musical.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that you, as the audience, get to be part of this show and decode the secret messages to lead to solving the mystery of what is going on. So a big thank you to our guests, Tess Rowan, Connor Daly, Larissa Beckman, Nora Hubert, and our stage manager, Jesse Higgins, for sharing their insights and experiences with us. Remember, Static will be live on the Rouse Center stage for 2 weekends. Tickets are general admission, and the show runs from July 12th through the 21st. And again, just a reminder, on July 19th, we have a special performance where we're going to do a talkback with the cast and creatives immediately following the show, followed by a special VIP meet and greet for our Round Now members. So we cannot wait to see you there for this unforgettable experience. So until next time, I'm Rob, and this is the Rouse Center RaueCast.